Recently, we've witnessed the very public meltdowns of Kanye West and Will Smith. Both men are at the pinnacle of fame and success, yet their explosive behavior is threatening to put a stain on each of their legacies. In this episode of CaCo Talks, we're diving into the complexities of what public meltdowns mean for our black male celebrities. Let's dive into this chat. So originally, Courtney and I were going to have a chat about Kanye because we got into like a little discussion one day about whether or not we think Kanye is a musical genius. And so we were going to, just kind of go through Kanye, go through his career. Obviously, he's a controversial individual. So talk about that as well. However, then the Will Smith thing happened. And we were like, what better topic than to talk about the behavior of black men and their explosiveness, right? Especially with these two individuals because they are celebrities. And they also have a platform that many others do not have. So we are going to dive into that today. So we're going to start off just with like some Kanye stuff. We're also going to hit on whether or not we think Kanye is a musical genius. So I personally think that Kanye is still a musical genius. However, I do think that would relate more to his older music and maybe his producing. He really is, I would say, a one of a kind type of artist and producer. But Courtney, what are your thoughts?
Personally, Kanye to me, I think I would say he's innovative. Genius is a really serious word to me. And the definition of genius is like an exceptional intellectual or creative power or other, or someone who has like just kind of unnatural ability, right? To me, a genius really is somebody who is advancing advancing the form of music. Kanye is not advancing the form of music, in my personal opinion. He is making bops, he's making hits, he's making things that are very popular. But is he really challenging the old way that we make music and then adding something new and creating something totally new? I don't see that. That's by my definition of genius. You know what I mean? Like if I had to say,
I think he. But I do think he has changed music. I really wholeheartedly do think he has changed music in a way. Like there is no one that I've seen in recent day producing or making music like Kanye did. Even with like, you could say samples.
I guess. I mean, I just feel like so much of his early music relied on samples. Like we all know All Falls Down, as well as Through the Wire. And I feel like, and even with like Gold Digger, like some of his really big hits, he sampled on. And I just feel like sample artists are not super innovative. Like they take something old and add a new flavor to it. But to me, somebody who would be a genius wouldn't have to take the old. They would be totally innovative on their own. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think I think like the sampling comes from my personal opinion. When people sample, it comes out of inspiration, right? It's not necessarily to steal, and obviously you're sampling it. It's not typically it's not the exact same thing. For example, I think when Kanye sampled it, sure, it may be like, in my personal opinion, it's usually something very minor in a Kanye song. Like for one song, he took like the guitar or something like that. Like that doesn't even count.
I don't know. I guess the big issue I have is not so much like whether, you look at his catalog and decide whether he's been innovative or not. The big thing I think is him being labeled a musical genius gives him a lot of excuses for his behavior, especially now.
Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately that comes with that title, but I don't think that should apply. Those are two different things.
Yeah, I agree. And like you were saying in the intro with like our discussion later, with Will Smith, it's like we hold these two men in like very high esteem because of their creative, abilities. And yet we don't look at some of their behavior, which is problematic at times.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also too, for one, for example, there's a lot of, I guess, mental health questions. I'm not sure if it's ever been confirmed with Kanye, but uh, I wonder if any of it stems from maybe some mental health issues with maybe
Yeah.
his meltdowns and or his sporadicness, like the name change, to Yee, or I don't even know what he's called today.
Yeah.
Even like the drastic change, which I get that music evolves and people change, but for him, in my personal opinion, his music has drastically changed.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could take College Dropout. He was really more in like the standard hip hop lane.
Yeah.
Um, and now he's very much, actually, oddly enough, I think his music is more innovative now because he's like playing with sound and he's just being very experimental with like the form of music making, of like different instruments and different arrangements and all that. That he's more innovative, in my opinion. His most recent works and stuff have been more innovative and more, quote, genius like than his popular stuff. And I feel like
I would agree with that. I
people
definitely
call
think
him a genius because of his popular work, and I don't think that's necessarily the truth.
no, it's not. To me, it's not just because of his popular work. I think also too, like production wise, I feel like because I'm not a huge like Kanye fan or anything like that, but I do feel like he does produce some good music. He's also produced for quite a bit of people. I know that I don't even know the name of the song, but that one song with the poopity scoop thing or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a quality song because it's like not talking about anything. But the beat freaking slaps, bro. Like that's a good beat. So
I mean, maybe he is like really musically talented or gifted, but because we're so used to mainstream music, we don't even recognize his innovative work.
Yeah, that's true. And I'm sure there's also a lot of stuff like he just doesn't release, like that we only get to see what people make available to us. So
yeah, I guess
we
maybe
only
I'm a
get a small
little.
insight.
Finish what you were saying.
I was just saying we get like a small insight of what these artists make and are experiencing and all that good stuff like that. So, it's very, it's kind of like a YouTubers, right? You only see a glimpse of their day. Same idea when you hear a song or an album. That's just one point in their life that they experience, or whoever wrote the song or whatever the case may be. So it's, I mean, you also have to take that into perspective that, yeah, he literally can be a musical genius, but we may not even know that because we only get what we get, what he makes available to us.
Yeah, I guess maybe I think about this more in terms of conceptual art and like, I'm not Kanye, but I'm also an artist. So I understand what it means to be somebody who creates things and puts it out for public consumption. On that level, I do understand Kanye. So what I guess when I think of genius, I think of somebody who's totally, their work is conceptually sound, the form is sound, structurally sound. Everything about that work has been thoroughly thought through, has been connected to each other, has been considered thoughtfully, and is being presented to the public in a way that makes sense that's going to make the work really sing. And I feel like some of Kanye's work, like Poopity Scoop, yes, maybe he was experimenting around with like words and sound, but I'm like, where is the conceptual depth there in Poopity Scoop?
But I think to me that song was more of like an art piece than it was just an actual song. I think what his message was in that song was I think the name of the song is like "Live Every Voice" or something like that. It's something like spiritual, I want to say. But it's almost like, even though he's selling nothing, he's selling something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that was it. Maybe he was really being like deeply conceptual, and I'm just like,
I think it's more of a conceptual thing. I think he's more of a conceptual artist now, and maybe not back in the day with like College Dropout, which you could even say College Dropout was for that time. First of all, the concept of being a college dropout was not okay back then. So that's making it, especially dropping college to become a rapper, that was not a thing. So
certainly frowned
even
upon.
that. Or frowned upon, exactly. I mean, I'm sure some people did it, but obviously Kanye did it. But it was definitely not as acceptable as it was today, I would say. So
Yeah.
you could reach and say that even that is conceptual art. So
Yeah.
maybe he's really in his own genre of conceptual, like rapper, maybe.
I guess. Maybe conceptual art is really tied to like the art world for me, and I see it as like sculpture and video, and really
I
like
think art
the
is
concept speaks
multifaceted.
louder than what actually comes out. Like it's not traditional form. So I mean, maybe. But then again, I can see how music could become conceptual art too. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's art. Art is so like broad and vague at times
Mm-hmm.
that it makes it difficult to define things
For
totally.
sure. Mm-hmm.
But I guess when I consider genius, I really think, I think in terms of somebody really they checked out every box, and it's holistically this work is sound to me.
But
There's
who's to
no
say that
hole
it
to
isn't
it.
sound? Just because it's not sound to you, and it may not be your
Yeah,
cup of tea, does not mean it's not that for them. You know what I mean? I
exactly.
think also too, as the person who's receiving the artist's work, you also have to kind of like put yourself in the artist's shoes, right?
Mm,
Um, and really take out your own opinions, I guess you could say, in
yeah, I
some aspects.
guess.
So,
To me, when I hear genius, I think of people like Carrie Walker, who is a visual artist. She does sculpture and video and drawings, and she's well noted. And like her artwork is in like the Tate Museum and like the Broad, like really huge museums. So when I think about genius, somebody who's really just pushing the bounds of the art form for themselves, but also publicly, that's what I think of. And she's heavy in the art world. So like, what can I say?
you don't
Like,
think Poopity Scoot pushed the bounds of art, or excuse me, music?
well, I guess it depends on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like it could, but it also could just get really reductive and get really down to like you just put some literal shit out there. You
Yeah,
know
but
what I
that's
mean?
one
Like,
song. He literally did that one time, and he's moved on from that. But like I said, I really feel like that song was more of like a statement piece. Like it was almost like I can literally sell anything,
yeah, I mean, maybe
you know.
that's.
And I
I
think also
mean,
too that he called, I think the song's like "Lift Every Voice" or something like that. But even in the sense of like spirituality, you know what I mean? You could even take it into context of they're literally saying nothing, you know. So there's so
that's
many
true.
ways you could like interpret that song.
Yeah,
You know,
and there's actually
even in the art form.
there's conceptual artists who have done that too. Actually, is
Yeah.
like quite literally sell shit. There's a really famous conceptual art piece. I forget what it's called, but an artist basically took a can and like wrapped it in like like a can like you would buy like a can of like tuna or something,
Uh,
and put like on there like artist shit and like put
uh,
it in a museum as if like to sell it basically because that's what they do. And you think about it, it's like that's what artists do. They sell their shit to people. We say that all the time. Like this is my ish,
yeah.
and it's like people will buy it just because it has the artist's name on it, or
Exactly.
because they consider it art in the first place. They buy it, and it's like
Yep.
if this really is a can of feces, you bought a can of feces because I called it art, not because
Yep.
it's a can of feces. It's just because you consider it
Exactly.
art now. So
Mm-hmm.
like I get that conceptual level, and that makes a critique. That makes a comment, a very clear comment. And like Poopity Scoop, you can look at that too and be like, he's making a clear comment. Like there's people who put out literal shit all the time, just like
Yep.
thoughtless work, and they make money off of it. So why not me say Poopity Scoop and bring attention to that? I get it.
Exactly.
Like I
Exactly.
get that I can get that on a conceptual level, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm not gonna say he's not totally like not a musical genius. I guess it's hard in my mind to say somebody who's so popular is just like genius at the same time, you know.
Yeah. I don't know. I do think he's a genius. And let me make this clear. I'm really not a huge Kanye fan. Especially, which we're about to move on to, is his
Behavior.
outburst and behaviors. Not fond of it at all.
Mhm.
So that definitely has changed my thoughts on him as an individual, but I do still think he's a musical genius. So we're going to switch on over and talk about his behavior
Yes.
because that is controversial.
Yes.
He is known for doing some interesting things. I would say his most recent thing is obviously his well, he's getting, I guess, a divorce from Kim, and he's basically harassing her. He's basically trying to control what she has going on and even her personal life, and I guess their home and their children, even though he's not present. And yeah, it's giving me very like narcissistic right now.
Yeah.
So,
and he's also making shots at her new boyfriend, her new relationship, and just saying some really like sociopathic stuff, like the stuff he was like releasing about trying to kill Pete Davidson and like all these like subliminally threatening things, and like, but at the same time he's trying to like yeah, like, but at the same time he's also trying to like woo Kim back by like sending her like masses of flowers and like all of this stuff. So I'm like, on the one hand, you want her new man dead, but you also want to like get her. You want to have her back.
I promise you, she's not finding that attractive.
What'd you say?
That's not attractive. Like
why
would she want to go back to you when you're threatening to kill somebody?
Exactly. Like, you look crazier now.
Yeah. And this is the one time I will ever be on Kim Kardashian's side, but run.
Yeah.
The one time.
I'm like, the harassment is just getting like to be too much, and like his public like been going on Instagram and like making these comments and like talking about divorce and like all these things that he's posting, and it's like we're really witnessing, this is what harassment looks like real time for women. If you don't know what harassment looks like, or if you are one of those, well, he's just trying to get his wife back type people, this is what harassment looks like, and this is what makes it dangerous. Is because somebody takes something too far and you don't know what they're capable of doing, especially somebody with resources like Kanye West. So if Kim Kardashian can't escape harassment, imagine what Sarah in the next cubicle can't escape. Okay, this is real. It's not funny,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think also too, like, now we live in the age of social media, so things are brought to light more often than not now. But however, I think he just gets a little finger happy. And first of all, social media is not the place to do it. First of all, that's proof.
Yeah,
that's a threat, buddy. And not saying that he should do these things behind closed door either, because that's definitely not safe. But what I am confused about is, what are you showing your daughter about you and your character? This is now made to the masses, to all your kids, really all your kids. I always think about North because she's the oldest, but literally all your kids. Do you want that to be acceptable for your children? Like, I hate people that don't take themselves out of it. It's not about you. Exactly. You now have children, you know what I mean? And these things affect your children.
He doesn't see it as that. He doesn't see it I don't think so. Himself. And it's like, again, maybe back to that mental health disorder, and I don't want to like totally diagnose him because I don't know his full mental health situation. All I know is that I do believe that there is some mental health issues, and I think that has been accepted by the public for the most part. But his like you were saying, like, he's not seeing this outside of his own wants, his own desires, his own feelings. Because before, when Kim was with him, there was no issue, right?
Yeah.
So, because Kanye was getting what Kanye wanted, right? He wanted...
But I do think there were issues. We just didn't know about them. And let's be honest, I don't think we would have known about these issues unless Kanye...
Well, I mean, from Kanye's perspective, there was no issue in the sense that he had his family, right? He had what he wanted.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like, let's be honest, outside of just what we see as far as the controlling now that they're trying to get divorced, I think he also was very controlling in their relationship as well. He was, I would say he was pretty controlling.
I don't know. I feel like I hate when people try to excuse him because of like they enjoy his music or because they dislike Kim Kardashian. And yes, I'm not saying Kim Kardashian is the cleanest soul on earth. Far from it. Okay, we all know she's like queen of the culture vulture committee. Okay, like we can get into Kim Kardashian another day, but I don't think person to person, woman to woman, I really don't feel like she should be experiencing harassment at the hands of any man.
Agreed.
You
Yeah.
know?
And this goes for any woman. It's for me, like, this conversation is bigger than just Kim Kardashian, Kanye West. This is, there's every woman has probably experienced this kind of harassment from some male in their life. So, you know what I mean? It's really about making the message known, using Kim as a example, really.
Yeah. I think
Because,
the best thing that came out of this is that it's so public because, people who want to excuse harassment for everyday women, average women, you see what this looks like real time like this. So when women are telling you I'm being harassed or so-and-so is not leaving me alone after I've broken up with him, you know what this looks like. There's no like skirting around it. If Kanye's behavior is making you uncomfortable, some man is making another woman uncomfortable in the real world, non-celebrity world. So you need to listen when women are saying I'm being harassed, because women usually don't lie about that.
For sure. And especially too, because, things can seriously escalate. Obviously he's making threats right now, and that's definitely not okay. But if it went just a step further, you know what I mean? Like, that really could be someone's life, that really could be detrimental. So, like, those things are just not something to constantly dismiss.
Exactly.
It needs to be nipped in the bud from the beginning that is not okay. And so, yeah, his actions, just because he's a maybe musical genius, if that's what you call him, or his status as a celebrity, that is not an excuse for this behavior at all. Well, and also too, mental health is not an excuse at all.
Exactly. And, I think, like, since we're talking about excusing his behavior, I really think the biggest thing that is excusing his behavior is not even his celeb status, is not even his money, his resources, his creative genius, if people want to call him that. I really think it's the fact that he's a man. I think because he's a man and people still in our society see pursuing women without consent, pursuing women against their wishes, they still see that as romantic and as somebody just trying to get their wife back, or somebody's like men putting in effort. It's archaic, but they see it that way. Like, a lot of people see pursuing against all odds as okay.
Yeah, I can see that. It's very true.
So I think part of it is that because we excuse everyday men with this kind of stuff.
True. Do you think it's beyond just like a men thing? So, like, you think toxic masculinity has a big role in that?
I think so. I mean, it's toxic in the sense that we are collectively, a lot of our society is still okay with the idea, like I was saying, of men pursuing women against all odds after women have clearly set a boundary, after women have clearly said, I'm no longer interested in you. Kim filed for a divorce and he's still doing this stuff, right? How much more clear can this woman get? Pretty
much, yeah.
And it's like, because people feel like it's not over until I guess the divorce is finally signed. Like, the boundary is not set until a judge sets the boundary, you know what I mean? Or until another man sets a boundary.
And I hate that it has to get to like extreme points for someone to be like, oh yeah, that should have been, like, it shouldn't take all that. You know what I mean?
No, Kim should be able to say, even if she was married to him, and say, Kanye, I'm not feeling it. And that should be respected right there. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think Kanye just has more resources to publicly harass, and he has so many more eyes on him. Like, a lot of men's harassment goes unnoted because they're not famous. They don't have money. They don't have resources. But it doesn't mean their behavior is any less problematic,
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like, you and I both have experienced harassment from men, right? And how unsettling that is. And this is average Joe, somebody who ain't got 2 pennies to rub together. Okay? And they get pretty creepy and pretty angry and pretty volatile when you just set a boundary, and say, you know what, I'm not interested in you, or I'm not interested in anything further, or whatever. They get pretty creepy, just average Joe. So imagine Kanye having the money, the resources to publicly harass somebody. I think it's got a lot to do with how we still allow men to behave in our society too.
Agreed. And I think also along with that is not only how they behave, but we're constantly making excuses for men, right? Blaming it on this, blaming it on that. And they're lacking a level of accountability. So you also need to be accountable, and we need to hold them accountable for their actions. So, for example, if Kim needed a restraining order, which honestly at this point I probably would have gotten one, she needs to be granted a restraining order, period. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just because first of all, he's already made threats. He's doing it on social media, so it's very public. And he's almost like proud of it. Like,
yeah,
no,
that's what I'm saying. I think that's what makes it toxic is like, they celebrate, yeah, I'm doing everything I can, like, quote, get her back. That's harassment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Textbook harassment. Male culture, the patriarchy we live in, celebrates that kind of bad behavior. Like,
for sure.
And like I heard that he like moved in like the same neighborhood as her, like moved a couple houses down. So like even that feels very like
it's weird
and intentional. Like you're not gonna escape me, kind of thing. Like, I don't think you know how deep men will go.
Yeah, just to spite you or get what they want.
Spite or harass or like, just small. It might seem subtle to you, but to somebody else who they're victimizing, it's not subtle. These things are not subtle.
Which I wonder if it's because, if she didn't have a new boyfriend, would it still be the same case?
I think it would be worse.
You think so?
Because I think men see women unattached to men as more vulnerable, more available to accept their harassment.
Yeah, I guess.
I know. Possible. Well, I was just, from my experience, the times I've experienced harassment, I felt like the harassment was like doubled down when they find out or they know that I am not with somebody. So they're like, well, why not me? Right? I feel like they get worse.
I feel like I've had both. Like some of them were like, oh, okay, let me back off. And then other ones were definitely like more pushy. So I guess I can't really
I guess it depends on the guy too, or like whoever's harassing. Yeah. But I do feel like when they think this person isn't attached to a man and they've already made some idea up in their mind about you being with them, they push harder because they're like, well, you're not with a man, so you should be with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I can see that.
I'm just saying, I'll say my experience has been people who tend to be more on that spectrum. They like create a relationship in their head because they know I'm not with somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than just respect the fact that I'm like, I don't want to be with somebody that includes you. Like, you know what I mean?
Facts. Yeah.
So the harassment, I think men will I don't want to limit it to just men, but people will make any excuse to harass if they can. If they're that gung-ho about harassing, they'll make any excuse to harass.
For sure. Yeah. So, okay. So now the Will Smith issue, because that was, which is still playing out. So we have more backlash to come out of this.
Yeah.
But, so, Courtney, you want to give us a rundown of what happened, I guess?
Yeah, so we all know now, unless you're, hiding firmly under a rock and refuse to come out. Will Smith, at the 42nd Oscars, the 2022 Oscars, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. The slap heard around the world, literally. After Chris Rock made a joke about Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith's alopecia. He made a G.I. Jane joke, which if you don't know G.I. Jane, that's a movie from the 90s where there's a woman who basically had a shaved head, right? Like, because she was a GI. So she had like a buzz cut. So he made a joke about Jada Smith's alopecia. If you don't know what alopecia is, it's a disease where you do lose your hair, right? And like your skin gets blotchy. It's a autoimmune disease, I believe, but it causes that kind of external symptoms to show up. So Jada admitted to having alopecia. something she's battling with. She's gone bald. She's now bald as a result of that disease, right? So at the Oscars and the ceremony, Chris made a joke about a G.I. Jane joke referring to Jada. Will Smith, as a result of that, gets up on stage in the middle of the Oscar ceremony and slaps Chris Rock and says, and then once he goes back to his seat, he's like, "Keep my wife's name out your effing mouth. Keep my wife's name out your effing mouth," right? He screams that out loud and like just has this public outburst trying to basically correct Chris Rock and like show Chris Rock like he's like not having it, right? So that's kind of the overview of like what went down. If you don't know, although, you know, there's plenty of video out there. So I definitely recommend going and watching. You'll see exactly what it is. But the issue with this is like, it's so shocking. And I think it's shocking because of all the who, what, when, wheres. It's shocking because it's Will Smith, who is like beloved actor around the world, right? He's like almost pretty much the guy next door. That's what I would call him, right? One of the biggest actors in Hollywood. What happened? He got on stage and slapped the mess out of Chris Rock, who's another beloved actor, right? Where? At the Academy Awards, one of the most like noted, you know, award shows in the world, if not the most noted award show in the world. And it's supposed to be family-friendly content, right? Like everybody's supposed to be able to sit down and watch the Oscars. And it's a prestigious award show, like it's the Ivy League, quote, of movies, right? So it's this like major show, a major event, and all these things combined in like 20 seconds in this like shocking kind of showdown, right? So yeah, that's kind of the overview of what happened. And it's been interesting just seeing the play out, how things have played out since, you know, the slap.
Yeah. Okay. So which side are you? Where's your opinion lying? Are we on Will? Or are we on Chris' side?
I think at first I was really kind of confused because I was like, I first thought it was a joke. I was like, what the heck? Was this planned? Like, you know, like I had to really, and then I was like, oh no, this was real. Will Smith got up there and slapped the mess out of Chris Rock. But where I stand now, after some time to think about it, I do think his behavior was wrong. I think going up there and slapping another man for making a joke at the Oscars, when you know the Oscars is about roasting people, okay? There's no secret. The Oscars, if you're sitting in that front row and you're nominated for a movie, prepare to be roasted, okay? They've been roasting since the Oscars started, okay? So I think his behavior was totally wrong. I think that there's just so many complexities to it that I'm even toying with the idea of like, did he do it for the right reason, like to protect his wife? I'm not even totally sold on that either, because I think his idea of protecting his wife is coming from a very broken place. But what do you think?
So I don't condone violence by any means. So putting your hands on someone else, you should receive the repercussions of that. So that's that. However, I'm not gonna lie, I'm more on Will's side just because, like Courtney said, I do think there is more to the story. However, I will say, me personally, I'm not a huge Chris Rock fan to begin with, just because I think he has made a career off of bashing other people. But I do think there's certain things that should just be off limits. I think medical issues are just off limits because to me, that's just not funny. Someone is legitimately dealing with that issue, fighting with that issue, experiencing that issue. And you don't know what that's like when you're just making a joke about it. You know what I mean? You don't know the internal battles that someone's going through with something like alopecia. Like I know someone that has alopecia, and, you know, if a joke was made toward this person has also shaved off all their hair because of, you know, just trying to like get their hair to grow and not be spotty and trying to cover it up. And You know what I mean? Like that's a part of their identity. So they have to get to the point where they're able to embrace being, bald and stuff like that. So it's a touchy subject for them. And that's with any medical issue. If if someone's in a wheelchair, you're not necessarily gonna make fun of them because they're in a wheelchair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So same rule applies here, in my personal opinion. And I also think too that before anybody knows, I would say Will probably knows the like the pain, the trauma, the talks, the decisions of finally cutting the hair and all that stuff like that better than anyone about Jada, So I think there is way more to the picture. But I also think there's, Will, especially with, the love triangle scandal, I guess. He has been seen as, I guess, kind of like a pushover. He just does whatever Jada says, like Jada's little BICTH. And so I don't know if this was maybe like an assertion of his like manness, dominance, masculinity, or maybe he's just like dealing with his own personal troubles. I really think this is a very convoluted issue.
Yeah.
That came out in a violent slap.
Yeah. So. It's like the moment was so like you could literally in a 20-second little like reaction, you can see the layers of things.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really why people are still talking about it, because it's like this has survived the 7-day news cycle actually. Right? Like
facts. Yeah.
Like this has been more than 7 days, right?
Well, it happened on Sunday, so not quite 7 days.
So not quite 7 days, but this is something that an altercation is usually something people flip through really quickly. Like, okay, so and so slapped so and so at the concert or whatever, move on.
Yeah,
right.
And it's because it's normal now. Like it's
exactly. It's like dead the next day. But people are still talking about it and still genuinely curious about how this is going to be handled. Like people are curious about the PR moves after this, which is not something people care about usually, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think the fact that, like I was saying, it's the who, what, when, where. It's like all those things converge in one moment to really it was almost like a statement that he made when he went up there and slapped Chris. It wasn't that he was going up there. It was reactionary, but he went up there to say something too in his movement. Yeah. It's almost like, okay, it's not performance art, but you know how performance art is about using your body and performance and your actions to make a statement. Yeah. It almost felt like that was Will's intention. It was, you don't say this about my wife, and I'm going to publicly show you and everybody around the world what this means.
Yeah. And
it's more complex than that reaction. You need, if he would have thought about it and then did it, maybe I would have more respect for it. But he just like reacted,
I don't think I do think the slap itself was like a split second decision. However, I also think there is a level of premeditation in that, of like, I'm going to defend my wife, you know what I mean? I'm going to protect her, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So it was while that specific act was a split second decision, I think there was a level of premeditation as well.
Agreed, because we all saw the clip of him laughing at the joke first, and then Jada being uncomfortable and looking like, that was a joke I really didn't like. And then Will getting up and slapping the mess out of him. Yeah. And like, which kind of reaffirms the whole he's Jada's BITCH, because it wasn't until Jada was uncomfortable that he suddenly got up and took action. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it gives very much, it's just complex, because it was like, who really went up there to slap and who was really making a statement? Was it Jada or was it Will?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it came through Will's body, but if Will wasn't bothered by it, at least from the, edit we saw, then who was bothered?
Yeah, but who's to say he wasn't laughing at the previous joke too?
That's why I give that up also to editing too, because I'm like, they could have edited it to look a certain way. I'm not even ruling that out, because that's what they do. But if that was genuine real time, like he laughed, Jada got uncomfortable, then he moved, you got to question that sequence of events.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah. I would love to hear like Jada's perspective, which I don't think she said anything.
Mm-hmm. I
I
heard
don't
that
think
she said
so.
something about like it's time to heal. She posted something like very vague, being like it's time to heal, it's time to like move on, whatever. And I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, you're gonna have to give more than that.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
the only way out of this seriously is they all got to come together at the red table.
Yeah, I
It need,
see.
to be, it need to be a 2.5 hour special. Period. Like it needs.
The only thing is,
they gotta correct this.
for sure. Here's my only thing though, because I think Chris has, I'm sure you can say he has been successful in bashing others and whatever. But I like questioned to see, I questioned myself to see if, do I really think Chris would have gotten the message and Will would have amicably went up to him and was like, hey, let's not do my wife. You know what I mean? Like let's not discuss her medical condition. Do you think he would have been like, okay, yeah, I'm going to respect the boundary? Or do you think it had to get to that level for Chris to respect it?
I think he could have gone up to him and said something later or after the show, or even if he wanted to really get physical, he could have roughed him up, you know, in the back or something. Like I feel like the spectacle he made of it makes them question more of Will's character and his motives than Chris's lame joke. You know what I mean? And you want to keep the attention on the like problematic joke, not on Will's character. You know?
Honestly, I honestly question more of Chris's character. Like, what would make you go there? For one, and for two, if that was, for example, like Chris's wife, right? Mm-hmm. Would you want someone to make a joke about your wife? Like, for example, say someone, you know, this is hypothetical. Say Chris's wife had a miscarriage, right? And Will makes a joke about, oh, just your wife having another miscarriage. Would Chris appreciate that?
I don't think so.
My point exactly.
And that's why I think Chris Rock's joke, I think his joke was across the line.
Oh, yeah. Very distasteful.
What I will say, though, is unfortunately, and this is something, the precedent of the Oscars has been set. And they had Oscars rehearsals, so they knew that this kind of stuff was going to come down the line. Right?
I guess.
If that's the precedent that's set, like, nobody goes to the Oscars, especially as a nominee and things, and you know what? They're not going to mention anything about me. They're not going to mention anything about my career or about what I do publicly or whatever. Like, you realize everybody was getting roasted, and that's because that's what they do at the Oscars. It's tradition. It's like historical. It's like trying to go into a statement,
trying to change that.
I mean, maybe it is, but I feel like he was okay when everybody else was getting roasted. So if you want to change that, you should have slapped Chris 85 times for all the jokes. You should have slapped Wanda Sykes. You should have slapped Amy Schumer. You should have slapped all of them, because all of them were a part of that tradition and that culture. And I know Will Smith has been to other Oscars. He's been nominated for other Oscars, I believe. He's been nominated for other Oscars, right? I think so.
I don't know.
But I feel like Will Smith has been to enough of those types of shows in his life and lifetime to know that this is what happens. And if you had such a critique about it, why didn't you have a critique earlier as well with other people? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have an issue when it came directly to you and yours, which makes it more personal.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I'm some more on Will's side. Yeah. Like I said, I don't condone the violent part of it. I don't think that was the proper way to handle it. But I really and genuinely do not think Chris would have done anything different, and Will would have amicably went up to him and was like, hey, you know, can we not talk about my wife? Like, it's really sensitive, blah, 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 blah. I feel like Chris would have made a joke out of that as well. And he probably would have been like, oh, Will came to me and said, like, that's not funny.
Maybe, and like, we got to give it up for the fact that, yes, comedians do cross the line. I do think comedians cross the line. And the nature of their business is to cross a lot of lines, right? Like they literally get paid to make jokes about people and to rag on people and make comedy out of it, right? Even people who are like PC make jokes about something that could make somebody uncomfortable, right? So
yeah,
I think it was a combination of like Chris was doing his job and like technically that falls within his lane of work, but it obviously offended Will. It crossed a line for Will, and then Will, reacted, in my opinion, poorly to it.
Yeah, very distasteful. For sure.
It's like, one time, I mean, this isn't the same thing, but I remember one time somebody made a joke about single mothers not making poor decisions and something, and this was at one of my jobs. And I was deeply offended in that moment. The person really, I don't think they understood fully how deeply offended I was. I just stopped talking to them at the moment and walked away and was like, whatever. But it was like, I didn't reach up and slap them. You know what I mean? And like they got the picture very clear that I was uncomfortable with that conversation because I just stopped talking and like, we're not joking anymore and I'm done. You know what I mean? But I didn't reach across and slap. It wasn't my impulse, I guess, to reach across and slap the person or like to hit them. Which makes the slap getting up on stage feel more like Will's attempt at a statement. Like he was, in my opinion, he was trying to prove something in that moment.
No, I definitely think he was trying to prove something. I don't know if we'll ever know what he was trying to prove, but I definitely think
was like, I think it was his masculinity. It was, I protect my wife. You don't cross me and mine. It was the like faux chivalry thing. Like I protect women. I protect my women. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was a lot of things. It was like almost like he was trying to like make up for what he couldn't do when he was a kid. Like when he couldn't protect, when he couldn't defend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
It felt like so much of his personal trauma like came up in that moment. You know what I mean? And it came out and transferred onto Chris Rock's face. It's like, the Will who couldn't protect Black women back in the day is now hopping on stage to protect them in this way. And it's like, and it's still out of order because you're not really healed when you're trying to prove something. Because if you were healed, you don't have to prove anything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's nothing to prove when you're healed.
Yeah, I will say healing is an ever-going process. You're never fully healed, right? You'll always be at 99.9%. You always got some progress to make. So I hate the idea like, oh, we have some healing to do. Well, you're always in the process of healing. So to me, that's just an excuse. So that's why I had to like, I think there's a bigger purpose, but I think it's beyond healing. I think there's, like you said, to me, he was just simply trying to prove a point. I think he was just trying to prove a point, like, do not mess with me and my family kind of thing. I think he was also just trying to prove a point also to Chris, because Chris can be very out of pocket, in my personal opinion. Mind you, this is what's ironic to me. Chris literally made a video about hair. You should know a Black woman's hair is off freaking limits, buddy. Like, come on.
I agree.
It's not that hard to know.
But I also feel like in the moment, nobody's thinking, oh, yeah, I made that documentary 5 years ago or 8 years ago.
Yeah, but you did the work and the education. You educated yourself to then educate the world because you made a movie. So you should know.
I mean, yeah. I think.
I don't understand that.
That was a moment where we saw two Black men who are supposed to be evolved not be evolved. Chris was supposed to be evolved to know not to say that kind of stuff about Black women. Right? The same way Will was supposed to be evolved enough to know that even if if something does hurt me, I can handle it another way.
Maybe.
It was like too now I want to say unevolved, but it was like lapse in judgment for both men, in my opinion.
Which makes me wonder, Courtney brought this up the other day when we were trying to kind of chat on this, whether or not Chris wrote the joke. Was it his original content, or did someone at the Oscars, as like a producer or whoever, wrote the joke? Either way, like someone should have read the room and have known that was No, the joke was distasteful. Like, ugh.
The way he said it felt more like he just inserted it in there.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like to me.
It felt, the way he said it felt like an ad lib to me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what Will got mad about, is like, maybe Will was expecting every other joke, and then he inserted something in there. And that's what, you know what I mean, set him off.
Yeah.
Because if Will went to rehearsals and theoretically heard the joke, you know, maybe then he was like, you're inserting something in that's deeply offensive.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's true.
And I mean, I get understanding the nuances of an offensive joke. Like, we've all been offended for things that seem small to other people but are actually like big to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, another thing that I really think is interesting about the fallout of this and the debate, because it's basically a public debate at this point, is people are really debating the idea of respectability politics. And for those who don't know, respectability politics is a set of social guidelines dictating acceptable behavior, from like clothing, the way someone interacts around us. Basically, it's the idea that people who are attempting to make a social change, so usually the oppressed person, must present their demands in a way that is acceptable to the dominant standards of society. So it's about being respectable in your demands of change to your oppressor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see that in the way that people try to police, like, you know, the Black Lives Matter riot. That's a big thing with respectability. People say, like, well, you can say you don't want police brutality, but you can't burn down buildings. You gotta be respectful. You gotta put it in a way that makes us feel okay, basically, about how you're protesting. You know, and a lot of people push back against respectability politics because it's another way of the oppressor telling you how to behave, right?
Yeah, it's like a control thing.
Yeah, it's like, if you can protest, but only on the standards that I set for you, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You can only do how I want you to do it for it to
which
be okay.
isn't full protest, right?
Exactly.
So people are really getting into respectability politics with this situation with Will, because they're like, well, it's okay to be upset, but this is how you have to handle it, or this is blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like, so what is your opinion on the respectability politics of it all?
And I guess that's probably where my standpoint comes more into play. Is he did the opposite of that, really, right? He just did what he felt in that moment, which was slap Chris. Which honestly, like, I mean, me and Courtney, we've had our little like rustles and tussles, right, growing up and stuff like that. And I feel like some of those were just like needed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not condoning violence, but will say, after we had, you know, said rustles and tussles, right, a boundary was definitely made. I'm telling you, it was definitely made, and I bet you it was respected after that, you know?
Yeah.
So I hate that it has to get to violence or an extreme point for people to finally get it. Unfortunately, in the society that we live in, nobody respects me verbally just saying, hey, can you not cross this boundary? Is when you get loud and extreme and you know, out of pocket or out of character for somebody to finally be like, oh, that's what you meant? Okay, I can honor it now. Like, no, I've been giving you warnings and signs way before we ever got to this point. If you know, really look at that person's behaviors and listen to what they're saying.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're saying people don't respect respectability politics.
No, I think people respect it way too much. I think in this case, I don't think it should be, you know, according to respectability politics, because I think Chris did that. Not Chris. Will did what he felt like he had to do in that moment, whether it was right or wrong. And let's be honest, if they weren't at the Oscars, he probably would have. Who knows if he would have did the same thing? It's just because he's at the Oscars that everybody's making a big deal about it, in my personal opinion.
My first thought, like, honestly, when I first saw it, my very first visceral reaction was, could y'all have done this in the back room? Or like, I know y'all go to the same country club. I know y'all like in the same, right about the same neighborhood, same tax bracket. Like, I know you can catch Chris outside, right? That was my first thought, was like, catch him outside, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But then that got me thinking, and somebody said this on TikTok, and I think this makes sense. It's the question, are we more upset that Will slapped Chris in front of white people? Or are we just upset that he slapped Chris at all?
I think it's because it's in front of white people.
And that's what I think too, is like, that's where respectability politics comes in. And that's the only reason why people feel like it needs to be respectful, is because they came to these white people's show on this white people's awards.
Yeah, and they're acting
white
black.
people stuff, and they're, quote, acting black. And so we had to like negotiate that, like, even as black people, because our first thing is, oh, well, he shouldn't have handled it like this. He shouldn't have. And it's like, are we saying that because he really genuinely slapped Chris, or because it was white people watching and Beyonce?
I definitely think it's only because I don't think people would even care if it wasn't at the Oscars. And like me and Courtney talked about, even if it was like, say it was the BET award, I think that would have been blinked over so fast. Just because it's an African American award, right? Do I think there would have been, it would have been talked about, sure, maybe, but it would not be carrying on like this.
Yeah.
And I also think too, if this were individuals of white descent, I don't think it would have been like this either.
That's true. I think another thing too is like, white people are so shocked because it's like somebody they held in their own, like, white people almost associate Will Smith as theirs. He may as well be white, for sure, in some ways, like he's beloved by white people, just like he is by black people. He's a major crossover artist. So for him to, quote, act black is shocking to them because they don't see him as black.
Yeah, he was the exception.
He's allowed to be in white spaces. Yeah, it's like when Beyonce started making songs that were actually black, and white people were shocked because they're like, Beyonce's not ours. Beyonce doesn't. It's like, it's interesting how, white America assumes certain black people just aren't black. And it's like, but then the black artist inevitably always shows, I am black, very clearly. For sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, Beyonce clearly shows she was black. Same way Will Smith has clearly shown that he's black, and we'll go there. Like, it's interesting to me because, again, like you said, is that it's because he did it in front of white people that people have so much to say or so shocked by it. I think that we can't deny that that's part of it. How, regardless of how you feel about if he went up there or not, like, it's because he did it in front of white people and Beyonce. Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, would we be equally upset, or would it have this same coverage if it was at the NAACP Awards? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Like, I definitely think we would have talked about it and been like, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have slapped Chris. He shouldn't have done XYZ. But I'm not sure it would have the same weight. Because major white outlets are covering this. It's like CNN, New York Times, everybody's like covering this. So I don't know. It's interesting. But, another thing that's interesting, too, is like the people who were pushing for him to be arrested were mostly white people. So it's like the white people, while they accept him and are shocked by his behavior because he's black, are waiting at the ready to push him out as a black man and suggest he get arrested. Yeah.
They're arresting Will?
No, they just were like, arrest him. He needs to be arrested. File charges. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, on the one hand, they're really willing to immediately put you back in an N-words place. No matter how long you've been up with the white people, no matter how long you've been beloved, they saw a black man go up there and slap another black man. That's what they saw. And they were shocked. Because it happened in front of them. It happened between two of their beloveds. Because Chris Rock is also beloved by white people, too.
You think
it's two black men that they're like, they really accept.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, he's done like Madagascar. He's on Netflix. He's like, everybody hates Chris. Like, people know Chris Rock. And I think I would actually put him and Will very much in the same status level.
Yeah, I would. That's fair. That's very fair.
So
I will say in this situation, I really do think that like both parties were wrong, you know? No one is quote unquote right in this scenario. Unfortunately, not even unfortunately, but no one's right? And I think, you know, for me, the bigger picture is accountability, right? As much as Chris, to me, needs to issue an apology, which I don't know if he has or not. I think Will needs to be issuing an apology as well.
he did issue an apology.
Chris did?
No, Will did.
Oh, okay, yeah. You're right. Will definitely did do an apology. But he didn't issue an apology to Chris. He just like did it. I
No, he
think
did.
because
He issued an apology to Chris.
Oh, to Chris. Okay. Well, I haven't seen that then. But yeah, no, I think Chris needs to issue an apology too, because that's just something that you shouldn't have been talking about, buddy. But you know, and the thing is, I bet you Chris won't talk about nobody's medical issue again. I bet you he'll be more. He'll watch his mouth now. I bet you he will.
I'm sure he will. Well, you know, the thing is, Chris has actually been incredibly gracious in this because Chris really had the deciding vote on whether Will would press charges, whether he would seek, like, you know what I mean, the fullest extent of the law to like prosecute Will, and he could have gotten Will in court and in all kinds of legal situations, right?
Yeah.
He probably could have got Will removed. I heard somewhere that the producers asked Chris if he wanted Will removed, and Chris was like, "Nah, don't remove him." Like, so Chris had. I think we got to give Chris more credit too for having the foresight to, keep him, to look out honestly for his brother in Hollywood, his brother in entertainment. Look out for him in that moment, and to do it in a very quick moment, like seconds, because he could have hauled off too.
I do, but I also think because, like, okay, for example, like, say we go to the cookout, right? Just like a black cookout, and there's like a little tussle. It's like, oh, they just have it out. You know what I mean? Like that is the, you know, say it gets physical. That they just do that, and then you move on. You like hug each other and move on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not saying that that's like, you know, good or like effective or anything like that. But I feel like that's also like a thing in the black community. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean you go and get them arrested and cause more trouble or whatever. Typically, I guess you could say.
And yeah, that's true. Because like you said, like we were saying, the people who were calling for arrests and stuff were mostly white. And I'm like, culturally as black people, not saying we totally let everything slide, but we don't call the cops until somebody is about to like really like die. You know, like we don't just be like calling the cops. And that's probably why Chris Rock's like jerk reaction was not to call the cops, because like culturally, Will Smith and Chris Rock are both from like inner city areas, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't call the cops.
And I don't think they grew up privileged, so they have an idea.
Yeah, and they know what it's like to be black men. So I think that alone probably is what really saved, you know, Will from being arrested or whatever. Because if that had been a white person, he would have been
good as gone.
Good as gone.
Good as gone.
And that's because white people have, I think, you know, white Americans have a different relationship with police. They see police as like kind of, it's more flippant for them to call the police and like for the police to correct actions and stuff, versus for black people, we don't just flippantly call the police.
Yeah.
You got to be in kind of almost a dire situation. Like some stuff, you hate to say it, it's like, it definitely is that don't air dirty laundry kind of stuff. And sometimes that's toxic, but that's, 9 times out of 10, we err more on the like, don't air dirty laundry side than not. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
Culturally. So I think that probably had to do with it too, because Chris like was like, okay, got slapped and like kept moving on with the show and didn't call the cops, didn't press charges, didn't any of that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how it probably would be handled if it was at a cookout or something. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm telling you, if it wasn't at the Oscars, I really don't think this would be a big idea, because that's like just how it's handled. You know what I mean? Exactly. It's just like take it outside, like rustle and tussle real quick, come back, you know, and everything's fine.
Exactly.
You know, Like that's, I don't, in today's time it doesn't happen as often. Like that is more weapon based, but like back in the day, like that's how it was,
Yeah. Like
that's not justifying it, but
yeah, we're not justifying it, but that's it. Give you the cultural context of like how it would be handled differently, and that's why I think white America sees this differently than Black Americans do, is because for white America that would have been sign, call the cops, anything remotely physical.
yeah,
White people call the cops when they just feel uncomfortable, right?
seriously.
So like that's what a Karen is. It's like they
That
just
is what a
feel
Karen
uncomfortable.
is.
Yeah,
Yep.
like they just call the
Karens.
cops because they feel uncomfortable, or someone might be doing something that they kind of don't like, right?
Yeah,
They call the cops for that.
or that
So
they are not aware of just because they're nosy. Like
just because they're nosy, yeah. Versus Black people, if we're calling the cops, somebody got to be on the ground about to bleed to death. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're calling the cops for a very real reason, because the cops are just as often used against us, right?
Exactly. Yep. They're not for us. So
there's a distrust of the cops in a very real way. I think that I can see that playing out for them, where like they're like, we're handling this amongst ourselves, rustle tussle, and it's done at the end of the day,
Yeah, exactly.
And that might not be something white America really understands, because that's just not culturally how they would handle things.
Maybe I feel like that's BS, but You
I mean,
mean
I
to
don't
tell me,
know.
like, say you had like a sibling or something that you didn't have like a little rustle tussle? Like,
I mean, I'm sure they did. I'm just saying, like, as far as when you take something like to the Oscars level and it's adults, I think, you know what I mean?
I guess so. Really, we're saying the Oscars is the Karen.
Well, I guess.
I think so, because I really feel like I said, if this was anywhere else, I really don't think people would talk about it for a hot second. It would be in and out like a light bulb. It's only because it's the Oscars. Only because it's the Oscar. And the Oscars, it's so prestigious, and you have to be of the elite, society to get in it. So they have to hold themselves to a higher standard. But let's be honest. First of all, we're all human. You know what I mean? We all make mistakes. And you cannot tell me there's more people on the Oscar that has never slapped nobody. Probably half those people on there deserves a domestic violence charge, period.
A lot of the people who have won Oscars are like pedos and rapists. Like Harvey Weinstein has like a bunch of Oscars.
And like
demote him. Like Woody Allen. So there's questionable people in the
already
Oscars
there.
and have always
you don't see them questioning them.
Exactly.
Because they're white men.
I think that's true. And I think also a lot of their behavior happens behind closed doors. So,
but whether it's behind closed doors or not, right, like Harvey Weinstein, that's you know how many people didn't come against him, and he's been found guilty. I think, has he been found guilty yet? Or
yeah.
Okay. Hello, take his stuff. Has anyone taken any of his things? Nothing.
I agree. I think if they try to hold Will Smith accountable, this is another topic, like what's the Academy's role in this? I don't think they should take his Oscar away, period. I don't think they should take his Oscar away. I don't think this warrants him getting his Oscar taken. And if they do take his Oscar away, they need to round up every last one of Harvey Weinstein's, Woody Allen's gotta go. They need to check everybody out.
Agreed.
Anybody with a weed charge needs to have their Oscar removed, because I don't see that. I'm like, you can't do that to Will Smith. Like the Academy is gonna look racist as mess if they take Will Smith's Oscars and they don't take other people's Oscars. They would have to clean house, and I don't think they're gonna do that. So I think he's gonna keep his Oscar probably.
I hope he does keep his Oscar, because if not, Will, if you hear this podcast, you need to make an example at the Oscars, buddy. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Honey. NAACP is about to be on that behind.
Update, he resigned from the Academy. So
I did, which I wonder if that was like a push for that, or he wanted to.
I don't know. Oh, I read that he willingly did it. So maybe he was like, that's what I read,
but let's be honest, they all have PR and stuff. I'm sure there was a lot of like lawyers negotiating, talk about what should and should not be done. Like, if you're of that status, it's more than just your decision. So
yeah. So
I wonder.
maybe he is like, he decided to resign because of like people pushing him basically to like be like this should be the next move so that the Academy doesn't have to formally be like kick you out, you know.
Yeah, maybe.
But
I wonder if that preserves his Oscar.
He just won an Oscar, and then like the first one, and he's been Oscar chasing. Everybody knows Will Smith has been Oscar chasing for the last 10 plus years of his career.
Which he should have won for The Pursuit of Happiness, because that's a good movie.
I agree. I don't know if that was nominated or not, but I think, honestly, I think his stronger performance was Pursuit of Happiness, and I thought he did a good job in King Richard too. But I think his stronger performance was definitely Pursuit of Happiness. That felt like real to me, you know.
Yeah,
but
that was a really good movie.
Yeah, like to this day, I think that's one of his best performances. But
have you seen 7 Pounds? 7 Pounds is pretty good too.
Yeah, that was good too. But like, see how we're rattling off all these performances? He's been Oscar chasing for forever.
Yeah, very true.
Like he really has. If anybody, unfortunately, has been like an Uncle Tom to the Oscars, it's been Will Smith.
Facts. Maybe that's what the statement is.
Like, if anybody has been a black person riding hard for white validation from the Oscars, it's been Will Smith and Jada.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Like, Will Smith has always wanted that level of validation as an actor. And I think it's just interesting that he got to that point and like, and now you're not a part of the organization anymore. It's like,
so does that mean he just can't be nominated again?
I don't know what happens when you resign, but I'm sure they'll probably like let some time pass and then he'll like get, invited back probably. But I think they should have just suspended him for a while and then, I
just looked it up. Let's see what happens when you resign from the Academy. It says he can no longer vote for the Oscars, but he can still be nominated for future Academy Awards. And he can also attend ceremonies. So, I guess that's not terrible.
He didn't get a bad deal then.
No. Yeah. And I'm sure he probably doesn't even care to be like on the damn panel.
Yeah, he just can't vote, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, it's been a great episode. We're going to wrap this bad boy up. You have anything to say, Court?
Well, I have one more question. We talked about this a little earlier. We're like, is this a man problem? Because we don't see notable black women acting out like this, you know? What do you think? I mean, that was our original question. Like, black men, celebs, publicly acting out. So what do you think?
I do think it's a man problem. And I'll say it's a man problem because I really think it's rooted in, like, they feel like they need to, like, prove themselves. And by being, like, assertive and dominant and violent. And, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And I don't think that black women are not perceived as the same way. However, I will say it's just not as acceptable for a woman to do that. We're already perceived as the angry black beings walking in a space of whiteness. And so when you're a woman, I mean, black, let alone a woman, you really have something to prove. You're really walking on eggshells. And so you just don't have the space to do that. You know what I mean? Like, for example, Cardi B, right? Cardi B is a rapper, and she used to be, for example, on Love and Hip Hop, and really just ratchet, right? She was known for that. But look how she's cleaned up.
Yeah.
Well, she's not doing what she used to do.
You remember at the Met Gala when she was like about to fight Nicki Minaj?
Is this recently?
No, it was a couple years ago. It was like when she was first started blowing up. But that did blow over very quickly. And I guess because I think people perceive Cardi B a certain way. They see Cardi B as already ratchet, so they're like, whatever, that's her behavior.
Yeah. I mean, but also, too, even in her being ratchet already, look how much she's cleaned up. Like, she does not carry herself or do that in that space. Because I promise you, as quickly as if she would have gotten into a fight with Nicki Minaj, she would have been canceled just as quickly as she got into that fight.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Well, I thought at the time people were thinking she was going to get canceled, but she
I
really
mean,
didn't.
but I think the only reason why she wasn't canceled is because Nicki didn't cancel her.
That's true. Well, I don't think Nicki still messes with her, but
yeah, I don't know. I think Nicki made that boundary, but just kind of like the Chris thing. Nicki was like, I just don't mess with you, but it's not going any further than this. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Technically, she could have filed charges on that too. That's I guess you could say that's possible assault, not battery, but same principle.
Yeah.
But I say that example to say that, though Cardi B was able to act in that space, she now is, she knows how to conduct herself in public spaces. And that's because now she also has something to prove, as well as she has figured out that you cannot act that way. Especially trying to get into a career where you are basing your career off of other people. It's just not a good look. It's just not a good look.
Yeah. Well, I think also women aren't socialized to have these sort of, demonstrative proving of their gender identity, right? Like, we don't walk around proving we're women to people, we are women to people and people behave accordingly, right?
I don't agree with that though.
I mean, I think in certain ways, but it's not the same, it doesn't have the same aggressive tone to it. Usually. You know what I mean? Usually, I mean, if I'm a woman and I want to prove to somebody I'm a woman, usually it has to do with how I dress, how I behave, how I, what I wear, or my hair or my outer appearance is usually how I prove I'm a woman to someone. Not going up and what would I even do to prove I'm a woman? Hitting someone, hugging them, you know what I mean? There's usually less physical ways of showing that you are, quote, a woman, because womanhood, being a woman, being a girl, is never really associated with acting out, right? Same way men, to prove their masculinity, it is fighting, it is calling somebody a name, it is being an a-hole. It's all these outward sort of proving aggressive acts, usually, right?
Yeah.
To prove you're a man. Versus women, usually we're socialized to, if you're going to show you're a woman, it's in being reserved, it's in being demure, it's in being more submissive. That's proving you're more of a woman, right? So
I guess that's the standard.
I think just being socialized that way, we don't see as many notable Black women acting out because most women are not socialized to act out ever.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely have to
you're an anomaly if you do
all
act
the time. For sure,
What'd
yeah. You definitely have to put on the act as a Black woman 24/7.
Yeah, and especially with Black women, going back to respectability, because you're already seen as as potentially angry or more violent somehow than white women. A lot of times when you correct or you try to disprove that, you become extra non-aggressive. You become extra you become extra feminine in the sense that you become very classy, very demure, very turn the other cheek, right? You always have to take the high road so you don't look like the stereotype.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very true. I guess so, yeah.
So
I guess the verdict is women are definitely not allowed to act like that in this space, let alone they don't have this, I guess, internal battle of trying to be masculine and dominant and
prove something,
exert that towards others. So
yeah, I think like we said, the problem would start with the internals. Most of the time, women don't feel like they have something to prove in that same way, because Jada didn't get her behind up there and do it, and she was the one offended, right? Allegedly. It was Will who took that on. His way of defending himself or defending what he felt like is his was to externalize it. Versus Jada, she really sort of just sat there, took the joke, was uncomfortable, made a little face about it, and that moved on. That's usually how women handle things is, unfortunately take the crap and move on.
Yeah, but how, and I wonder if maybe that's why Will did it. You know what I mean? Because he knew that she couldn't, or she's not in this, the space to do that. So maybe that's why.
Well, maybe, but I feel like, she was in good enough health to walk in there and walk the red carpet. She was in good enough health to go up there and slap him if she wanted to.
Yeah, but she is, the repercussions of that is different for Will. Like, I think Will will bounce back. He'll be fine. But if Jada would have did that, you think she would be okay still?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I think as a Black woman, it would not be the same.
I think as Black women, that's not the first thought we think of how to defend ourselves, is to go and hit someone. I think that it's that internalized. Is like, when I think defend myself, my first thought, especially against a man, is not to go and hit a man. That's not usually our first thought.
Yeah, I guess.
Usually now. Now there's some girls who will go and like kick your behind, just like anybody else. But like, usually as women, our first thought is not to, how do I physically inflict pain on someone?
Uh-huh.
Generally. I'm not going to say always, but,
I guess that's fair.
So, but anyway, yeah, I thought that was a good discussion. I mean, there's a lot more to be discussed, and I'm sure things will continue to unfold as the weeks go on, because it seems like the story is just going to keep going on.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I'm low-key kind of getting sick of it, because I'm like, damn, we still talking about this?
Seriously, yeah. Like, we're over it at this point. Like, this is, I hate to like normalize it, but it is almost like normal in the Black community. Like, okay, come on, it's a slap.
Yeah,
that's
to
light
us,
work.
it's not as big as I think white America has made it, but
yeah, which that's white America for it. Like, they feel like they need to make an example out of a Black man at all times. I think for me, the bigger picture is the response from the Oscar. They better be strategic about what they do,
about how they handle
because
it.
I promise you, if they don't, they're gonna have some backlash from NAACP.
Agreed.
I promise you.
They already are halfway canceled. People have already halfway canceled the Oscars, so I'm like, if they don't handle this, they'll be totally canceled.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're already on thin ice.
That's probably why they just aren't saying much.
Probably.
Because they're like, we already really didn't have a rating. Like, I heard people were saying, they were like, if it wasn't for the Will slap, I wouldn't even know the Oscars were on. Exactly.
Honestly, I was not going to watch it. I did not watch it.
Yeah, I didn't watch it
I heard
either.
about it the next morning.
Babe, I'm a filmmaker, okay? And I was not watching the Oscars.
Yeah. Which the Oscars has long been canceled, so.
Yeah. I hate to say this. Maybe I'm being a Will apologist. I do still want to win an Oscar one day. I still do. And it's because I do think I like the idea of other filmmakers co-signing your work in a way that like they can say like, oh, we really appreciate that this work is like good. You know what I mean? So I like that idea.
But I feel like it's so biased.
I mean, I think it's biased too because it is so like white leaning and like the whole organization is like mostly white, but
yeah. And I think also too, I don't like seeking the validation for someone else to approve of your artwork is, I get it, but like especially in a white space like that.
Yeah, it's conflicting. I get it.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think it is conflicting, and like I've been in my own journey about like when you do make work, what are you seeking out of it besides obviously your own personal fulfillment and like continuing to be an artist, but like what do you get out of getting an award, or what do you get out of getting into certain festivals or whatever? Like what is this about the work, or is it about you? And you have to be in conflict about that as an artist, because on the one hand, when you do reach certain statuses, it does get you more notoriety, which pushes more of your work out there. You get to continue to be an artist in a very real way, right? So it's conflicting.
Very true. Very true.
But yeah, I think that was a great discussion. Like we were saying, there's so much more to be unfolded. Kanye and Will have been acting out, and it's interesting that it seems like we're in an era of Black men acting out in ways that we've never really seen them before. or maybe we just never paid attention to before. So it's interesting to see what the public response is to these things. We'll definitely
wouldn't
keep
say that we've never
an
seen
eye
it
to
before. I think it is quite normal, but I think in the spaces that it's been in is, I guess you could say, abstract.
Yeah, and maybe because they're both tied to white spaces. Like Kanye is tied to a white presenting woman, white passing woman, and Will's tied to the Oscars, which is white. So maybe it's that. I don't know.
Very true.
But it's interesting that these things that Will's behavior is getting was very Kanye. Like we know Kanye will get up on stage and interrupt something, but Will, that was new. So I don't know. It's been interesting, having this conversation about like black men, celebs, them being ultra famous and maybe how that protects them as well. Like the idea of them being geniuses and exceptional somehow, so that kind of protects them. So it's interesting, and we'll continue to definitely keep an ear to what's been going on.
Yep. Well, we have enjoyed this great chat with you all. We hope you guys join us in the next one.
And we'll see you in the next podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye.